The main goal of this presentation is to convince this committee about the following. What we have been doing so far is not working. Otherwise, how can we explain, for example, that some students get to 11th grade reading as if they were 7 years old? We need to change our methodology so that it is more attractive and engaging. Students in general hate when the time comes to write an essay. We need to motivate them and present a new way of improving their reading and writing skills. We need to develop a specific plan to teach reading and writing, a plan that can be applicable across courses, a plan that is aligned to the course goals and to the final goal, which is the POW examination, and a plan that is not based on our own beliefs but on learning principles and proven theories. Let's face it, so far, we do not usually diagnose problems, and as a consequence, we do not modify our lesson plan so that the learner can improve. This obviously leads to frustration. We do not have a sensible plan for extensive reading. We decide which book every student in a class must read, we set a deadline, and then our students take a test where they have to answer some reading comprehension questions. What are we really measuring with this test? Moreover, are the texts chosen appropriate for each student, or do they only correspond to the level that the grade should have? Being forced to read something they are not interested in addition to not being able to understand what they are reading, only leads again to frustration. Feedback, well, that's another important issue. I have seen teachers who simply give their assignments back with a grade on it, no feedback at all. Some others just write in red what the student should have written or fill the paper with symbols and arrows showing where the mistakes are, but do not give the student the chance to correct and resubmit their work. If students cannot use the feedback to improve, once again they'll be frustrated. Sometimes we test our students on things we haven't worked on sufficiently. We think their essays are poor, but have we really dedicated enough time to, for example, topic sentences and supporting ideas? Frustration is a consequence of unfair assessment. Honestly, I think we can do better to motivate our students. This is the scenario for my proposal. I have been an English teacher of the foreign languages department for the last 14 years, so I think I can say I have a clear understanding of our students' needs. Actually, I'm teaching 11th and 12th grades. Although this lesson plan has been designed for 11th grade, it can be implemented as early as 7th grade as long as we modify and select the appropriate materials, of course. Students, all of them share the same native language, Spanish, all of them take English as a core subject, all of them will take POW examination, and all of them need the academic level required to attend university. It is important to have in mind the final goal of the secondary and bachillerato education in Spain. As mentioned earlier, all the students will take the POW examination. Even though this test assesses their reading and writing skills, as language teachers, we do not conceive second language acquisition unless we pay attention to the 4 skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. This is what the English paper in the POW test looks like. There are 5 activities. Number 1, are these statements true or false? Activity 2, in your own words, answer the following questions. Number 3, find synonyms in the text that means the same as the following words. Number 4, fill in the gaps with one word or with a suitable form of the word given in brackets. And activity number 5, write about 100 or 150 words on the following topic. So how are we going to align our goals with the lesson plan? We will base our lesson plan on the following learning principles suggested by Nation in 2009, because they will help our students learn the strategies they need to achieve their final goal. Meaning-focused input. Text should be appropriate for their level. If they do not understand the 98% of the vocabulary, they will not be able to guess the remaining 2% from context. The input they receive should be meaningful, and it should cover different purposes: reading to search for information, reading to learn, reading for fun, to integrate information, to critique text, to write, etc. Meaning-focused output. Reading should be related to other language skills: listening, speaking, and writing. Language-focused learning. Students should learn a variety of strategies that include previewing, setting a purpose, predicting, posing questions, connecting to background knowledge, paying attention to text structure, guessing words from the context, etc. They should also become familiar with different text structures. Fluency development. Learners should enjoy reading and feel motivated to read. They should read a large quantity of texts that are interesting for them. We have divided our lesson plan in 3 sections: intensive reading, extensive reading, and writing. This is how they fit into the different learning principles. The first section is intensive reading. Even though we will be working with specific texts, we want to make it clear that the goals are to practice strategies that will be useful with any other text, and work with high-frequency features of language that will also appear in many other texts. The selection of materials is also an extremely part of this section. We must check the readability level of the text we choose, and we can use Frey or Regular's graphs to do so. Topics should be attractive for students too. Gibbons suggests organizing the activities before, during, and after reading to make out the most of every text that we use in class. This is an example of different activities that can be done with the text used for a lesson plan. The text is about gap years, which is really attractive for the students who are so close to making the important decision of what they will do after 12th grade. Before reading activities, predicting from the title. The first activity will be to write the title of the article on the blackboard, Should I Take a Gap Year? And ask my students to figure out what the text will be about, predicting words they will encounter. Before giving them the article, and once we know what a gap year is, I will ask my students to guess what other words they might find in the text. Sharing existing knowledge. I will ask my students if they know anybody who has taken a gap year, and if they do, they will share it with the rest of the class. I have chosen these activities because I think it is important that the learners are already familiar with the topic before actually reading the text. This will make them feel more comfortable and confident. During reading activities. Modeled reading. I will read the text aloud first, paying special attention to pauses and expression. Skimming. The students will read the text to get the general idea of the content. We will discuss if they guessed correctly in the first activity, in the one we did before reading. Scanning. This time I want them to read the text carefully. I will explain that wherever they see a number in brackets in the text, it means that there is a phrase missing. They will have to read the deleted sentences at the bottom of the page and try to match them with the correct gap. I will warn them to look at the first word of each of these sentences to figure out its relationship with the rest of the text. I have chosen these activities because I want my students to realize that reading correctly helps understand the meaning. Pausing in the wrong place could change the meaning of a sentence. Also because, as Nation points out in his book, the book he wrote in 2009, cohesive devices occur in every text, so the learning from one text should readily transfer to the reading of another text. After reading activities, guessing words by the context. I will give my students a list of 4 or 5 words that do not appear in the text. I will ask them to look at the text and find a synonym of these words. They will have to think about what part of speech the words in the activity are and try to look for such parts of speech in the text, and they will also have to analyze the clues in the context to decide whether the word I give them could fit that position too. Comprehension questions. I will provide a true-false activity to make sure that they understood the content of the text. I don't only want them to say the statement is true or false, but also to copy from the text the evidence where they have found it is true or false. This way, when we correct the exercise, they will demonstrate that they have looked for key words in the statement that also appear in the evidence from the text, and they will be able to justify their answers. Sentence completion. I will give them the beginning of some sentences, and they will have to complete them with information from the text but in their own words. With the sentences I give them, I will try to draw their attention to the different uses of gerunds, after prepositions as the subject of the sentences, etc. With extensive reading, we are looking for incidental learning to occur. We want students to focus on the story and not on specific language features to learn. Studies conducted by LA in 1991 and by Waring and Tekaki in 2003 have shown impressive results of extensive reading programs. We strongly suggest using graded readers because they ensure that students will encounter the same vocabulary repeatedly. We must be sure to let them choose the books they are interested in, but within their level of proficiency, so that what they read is only a little beyond their level. What do we have to do? Find out our learners' present vocabulary level. Provide plenty of interest in an appropriate text so they can choose. Set and encourage and monitor large quantities of extensive reading, and we can do this by using oral book reports or discussion groups. What do we gain? Motivated students, faster reading speed, wider range of vocabulary, and a better knowledge of the target language. One of the main goals of our writing section is for our students to understand the writing process itself. Sometimes learners have to write about a given topic and they are not allowed to follow all the stages of the writing process. We should provide opportunities for them to identify the purpose and the audience, to gather ideas, to organize those ideas, to turn the ideas into written text, and finally to review and edit. We also need our students to learn how to write the type of essays required in the PAR examination. In order to achieve these goals, Nation suggests designing different types of activities: experience tasks, shared tasks, guided tasks, and independent tasks. The learning objective of the lesson was to write a persuasive letter to their parents to convince them about the benefits of taking a gap year. Experience tasks. The purpose of this activity is to help learners bring their prior knowledge into the activities that lie ahead. We will talk about the topic, we will watch a video about the topic, and we will also answer some questions related to the topic. So all the skills will be involved in this activity. Shared tasks. Here, students have to, in pairs, prepare a dialogue, and one of them will be the student and the other one will be the mom or the dad. I think this activity will help them prepare for the final task, since they will have time to anticipate possible counterparts their parents might be thinking about and offer a solution for them. Guided tasks. In order for my students to remember the structure of informal letters, I will give them the layout of one, but there will be some mistakes, some errors. They will have to identify the correct forms for informal letters and correct the ones that are wrong. The paragraphs of the letters will be in the wrong order, so they will have to order them for the letter to make sense. I will also provide my students with a list of persuasive words and phrases. I will dictate some sentences in Spanish and they will have to translate them into English using the words and phrases in the list. Independent task. Now it's time for my students to finally write the letter. Evaluation is a very important part of our lesson plan. How are we going to assess a student's progress? Evaluation is based on 3 different pillars: self-assessment and peer review, feedback, and assessment tools. There should always be a pre-training plan at the beginning of each course to teach students how to self-assess their own work and to give peer feedback. They will learn how to use checklists and to focus on specific features. Picker's work in 1986 showed great results. Evans in 2010 also suggests teachers to provide positive and encouraging feedback. We need our students to use this feedback to improve their skills, not to simply learn about their weaknesses. It should also be timely, manageable, and meaningful. If students hand in a piece of work, we should give it back to them as soon as possible, and we should always allow them to repeat this assignment after receiving our feedback. They will be more motivated if they know they can always improve their grade. We should be very careful with what assessment tools we use in our classroom. Students should be familiar with them. They must test what has been taught. We think analytic marking should be used in reading assignments, since marks are awarded for specific features of language, such as grammar, vocabulary, and cohesion. This provides a lot of information for the student and teacher to learn about the possible areas of improvement. Finally, we strongly believe we should advocate for an integrated approach so our students can develop the 4 main skills. Brown and also Hinkle suggest this is the appropriate thing to do. Incorporate social and educational technologies into our lesson plans, such as wikis, blogs, or the application for iPads, Screenshot, that allows you to give very effective and meaningful feedback for our students. Make our students more responsible for their learning process by allowing them to submit their written assignments again after receiving feedback. Get them involved in giving and receiving peer feedback so they learn to identify mistakes and how to correct them. And allow for collaborative work and negotiation of meaning, as we have done in the activities described in this lesson plan. Thank you very much for listening.